Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Hollywood Matt Connolly with the double biceps. It is in the contract and legal requirement every single time we appear on camera. This is the Daily Combat Podcast as part of the AWE network. The co-host, co-breather of air, co-wearer of clothes in this very room. It is, in fact, the King of Sting, the Count of Monte Cristo, the Master of Disaster, Thunderlips, the ultimate male. It is, in fact, the winner of the Dave Stockbridge of the Year award. There it is right there, that illustrious award. Being choked unconscious by Tito Ortiz, not John Cena, painted yellow. It is, in fact, Dave Stockbridge. Welcome to your own show.
Well, thank you for that very, very warm welcome, Hollywood Matt Connolly. As always, it's an absolute pleasure to be here, and it was a pleasure to call some of the commentary with you at the recent AWE event.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, what an event. Saturday, the 25th of February, it finally came round. We got there in the end.
It was like Christmas for arm wrestlers, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Two big events in the world at the same time, and there was a lot to look forward to. And for us in particular, there was a big build-up behind the AWE event, and it didn't disappoint.
No, absolutely, yeah. How did you feel when you jumped on the commentary thing? Because you were doing the ring announcing for the event, and then when Ryan Bowen, who was doing the commentary with me, he needed to compete in the main event, so he went to go warm up, and obviously there's an empty seat there, and the man with the golden voice that was in
Barely a voice today.
Yes, that's right. You've used all your voice powers on the weekend.
Use some soothers here.
That's right. Filled that gap, filled that void in. And so running over to do double duties, and then we were running back and forth, handing out belts, and you were running into the ring to do the announcing and coming back to the commentary table.
I wonder if anybody knew. I don't know.
Maybe it could have been Keith that was doing the voiceover.
Keith, he's always there when you need him.
He's amazing.
Yeah, it was great. It was a very special experience, and I guess being so intrinsically involved in the build up to it, and understanding where the athletes were coming from, and having some sense as to what to expect was very helpful in that situation. I will also say, like, doing these podcasts with you, I will say we've got a very special on air chemistry that I think really shone through in the broadcast. Whereas that other guy that was doing the commentating with it seemed awkward and a bit disjointed.
Clumsy. It's the word.
No, actually listening back to it, I actually did listen back to it because I didn't watch the broadcast, so I did listen to it on the way back, almost like a podcast. And,
nice.
Yeah, and what was interesting through listening back to it was you and Ryan had a great chemistry, and it worked really nicely, and I thought that there was that beautiful and delicate balance between colour and real thoughtful analysis and the occasional joke, and it was very light-hearted as well, and as well as having its more serious moments, and neither of you were afraid of getting excited and letting that come through, which I thought was a beautiful thing to listen to in the broadcast as well, and of course, and I always enjoy jumping on the mic with you. So by the time we got around to those feature fights of the evening, so it was actually a real joy to be able to and a privilege to be able to call with you those title fights at the main event and co-main event of the evening.
That's right.
So that was a really special moment, and one that I'll cherish for many years to come.
Yes, me too. It was amazing, and to get that moment happening after we sort of conceptualized this 3 months ago.
Yeah.
And it was just that Ryan had called out Chance Shaw, and he's like, I'm going to bring you over to Australia.
Again. Yes.
Yeah. Ryan Bluebone, for anyone who doesn't know, one of Australia's best arm wrestlers, and he had a previous match with an American guy, Chance Shaw, and
much larger individual,
right.
big guy, young guy.
Yes, that's right.
And certainly a rising star in the sport of arm wrestling.
Absolutely, yeah. And so Chance had won some key matchups over in the US, and Ryan felt, hey, this is the time. Like, this is probably a really good match, a rematch. He'd won the original, and he made a video saying, Chance Shaw, I challenge you to a match. I'm going to actually fly you out to Australia. And as soon as we saw that, it was like, I wonder if I could get him to come to us.
Because we'd already had a date set out. And so some people have asked why it was that the King of the Table and AWE event were seemingly on the same day. Although
we said it first.
Yeah, we very much did. Our event was always going to be part of the Apex Sport Fest 3, and we'd previously collaborated with the organisers of that event with a local event, and on this occasion we saw. Not only has the Apex Sport Fest grown in stature and calibre over the last couple of years, but we also felt that there was an opportunity to do the same for arm wrestling. Yeah. And so when we had heard about this matchup that Ryan had with Chance, we were quick to reach out and say, hey, if we can get you here as part of that as a main event, we'll try and build a card in behind you. And then Ryan saw the opportunity as well and said, hey, let's maybe just do something together. And so that's pretty much how the AWE was formed, through this just a very open dialogue and conversation. And we've worked very collaboratively on several occasions with Ryan and Hollywood. You've got a very close relationship with Ryan outside of just arm wrestling as well. And so it was a really lovely fit and brought about, I think, the best in all of us. And we between you two guys, you were able to pull together the greatest card ever assembled in the Southern Hemisphere for arm wrestling. So it was quite a treat as a fan of arm wrestling to see all of these names in the one place and some pretty awesome matchups as well. And the day did not disappoint.
No, absolutely. Yeah, it was amazing that we sort of, as we said, a couple of months ago, it was just an idea. And I remember we were practicing a sales pitch. We were going to ring Ryan with this idea and this is how we're going to say it, and we're going to present it like this, because we wanted to sell him on the idea of, we want you to come to Adelaide, we want you to do your match here. And that was all it was at that point. And I think we'd scheduled a meeting with him, and then it dropped out last minute, and then something else happened, and I ended up just writing it in a message.
Just text him.
Come to Adelaide on the 25th. So, no, it worked out really well. And, yeah, luckily we got some of the best names in Australian arm wrestling to come along and put on amazing matches. And, yeah, what an event. These were matches that we wanted to see. Like,
Indeed,
it was like, imagine if we get to see this and these two guys go at it. So Indeed. Some of the best guys that have been in Southern Hemisphere, as you said, and it has built on so that we can push this towards the next event as well. So, yeah, but
it really did establish, post-COVID where the pecking order sat, because I think there was still some degree of conjecture over that. Although some of these men had met over the table previously, others hadn't, and it wasn't exactly clear what that top 10 would look like in Australian arm wrestling. But I think very much now there's a lot of clarity, and I think maybe one of the standout performers who really shone brightly on the day was Marcus Satirai.
Yes, 162 kilos, 6'3", 6'4",
a formidable man.
Oh,
yeah,
incredible.
Yeah, and lovely chap as well. I noticed Devon Larratt's now shared the video of Marcus Satirai and said very, very, very nice things about him and about his potential and how far he's come in such a short period of time. So it was great to be able to share that with the world, and I think in some part it was great for somebody like Marcus to get out of his club environment and to really test himself against some of Australia's best, and he had the opportunity to do that twice. As it turns out, on the day, which wasn't planned, but that's exactly how it worked out.
Yeah, he jumped at the opportunity, and that's the way you get ahead in life is, you seize opportunities. So originally, Ryan Bowen was supposed to, originally, we had a lot of replacements, a lot of dropouts. Unfortunately, last minute, there was some injuries, there was some dropouts, and Lachlan Carpenter was on the other end of that. He had opponents that dropped out and had to switch opponents 3 times. And so Ryan Bowen had said, look, I'll have my match, and then I'll have a match with you. So that you've got an opponent, so you haven't wasted money and time to fly here and all the training and everything. So we'll get you here and we'll put you on the stage, and we'll see how you go. And I'll be pre-exhausted, so you should have a good chance.
And Lachlan's the open weight current national champion as well, so he's no slouch. And
exactly, that's right.
It would have been quite formidable for Ryan, even fresh. One would suggest.
That's right. And Ryan had his main event match, and afterwards just had nothing left in the tank, and said, "Look, I can't perform on the stage with you. It's just going to be laughable. Like, I've got nothing to give you."
And did you think for a second that maybe you were going to have to stand up and? Be prepared.
No, not at all. I wasn't aware of any of this going on because I was we were both commentating at that time.
I was just wondering if you're harbouring thoughts deep within you.
This is my moment.
Would they ask me?
It looks like the commentator's going to have to save the day. It's not planned at all.
I've been waiting for this moment.
That's right. Yeah, all these accidents that keep happening to all the pullers around
Accidents,
the world. So, so Ryan had his main event. He was supposed to go against Lachlan Carpenter. He had nothing left. And
did you sabotage Todd Hutchins' snowmobile? Is that what happened? Was it a snowmobile? Was it a snowmobile?
ATV.
ATV. So that's just like a.
It's like a little go-ped thing, an all-terrain vehicle. It's like a motorbike that's half a car.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like a snowmobile, but for land, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's like a land snowmobile. You just want it to be a snowmobile so badly. Could you ride it on snow though? Well, it's all terrain.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, maybe it was snowing. Yeah, that's why he flipped it.
What was he doing riding it? That's what I want to know. What was he doing? Is he a stunt? Is he stunt driver when he's not arm wrestling?
Maybe that's the only way to get through all the snow.
In Florida.
Where
is he? Is he
summer.
Florida? No, I'm not sure.
Yeah. But
he was walking in snow in his
in his
promo video.
That's
you
true.
remember? So that's where I think I've got.
There was a couple.
Because I imagine him just to get to the letterbox, in the morning, just on the snowmobile, and
it's a long
mishap.
way.
Yeah, his wife needed something from the general store or something, and that's some miles away. So he was off, and a deer emerged. Took the angle a little bit too tightly, but there was scant information with respect to the accident. So it was very much left up to my imagination as to what.
I like how you're doing like a sort of a wave ski motion.
Yeah, because I'd imagine that's what a snowmobile's like, not having ridden one before.
I've never seen snow in person.
I don't even know what a snowmobile is.
Yeah. But it sounds good.
Yeah.
Yeah, so taken out by a snowmobile. They are hard to sabotage.
I do hope Todd's all right, though. I mean, he's reported he is on the mend now and hasn't trained yet, but he's looking to start his recovery next week, which is great that he's able to start with that just
That's
after snowmobile.
Yeah, for sure. So anyway, we had a last minute swap at the very end of the day, and it was that Marcus stepped up and said, "Hey, I'll go against you.
I'm fresh."
Yeah, yeah. Despite having pulled Adam Laura, who is a mega mass monster from Sydney Spartans, and having won that match as well, and Marcus had won that one, and said an hour later, well, okay, I'll go again if you haven't got anybody in Lachlan, and we stepped in and beat Lachlan as well.
So we've answered a few questions, and all of a sudden Marcus Tirai skyrocketed to the top echelon of arm wrestlers in the Southern Hemisphere, and perhaps can be talked about in the top 3 or 4.
Yeah, absolutely. Potentially he's making that argument for himself. Yeah, without it, I mean, his size, his strength, his dominance, it would be tough to put him out of that top 4 or 5 guys.
And another big surprise packet on the day was Hamza, the Hammer Hodgic. So he
surprising for some, not for all.
All the smart money went on the wrong man, didn't it?
Yeah.
So the Jamie Barrett train ground to a halt on Saturday the 25th of February, and Jamie's a lovely young guy, and it was tremendous to have him here, but to see Hamza, I guess, wrestle that crown away from him as the top junior, and to maybe slow that hype train down a little bit and bring some attention to himself. And I think in the post-match interview I might have mentioned that he's very much been training in Jamie's shadow. And whilst all the attention's been on Jamie, he's been quietly working away and working on his craft. And Saturday we got to see the result of all of that.
Absolutely, yeah, for sure. Should we go through the results very quickly?
Let's go through the results.
All right, so our first match up, we had a left-handed match with Christian Bowes and Stephen Carroll, who was a last-minute replacement. Originally, it was supposed to be Christian versus Lass Botha, but Lass got injured. and then it was supposed to be Christian Bose versus Brett Coots, and unfortunately Brett couldn't make it. And so Stephen had been lobbying for that match. He wanted it. He wanted that match.
He'd been hankering, hadn't he?
Hankering very much.
Yeah.
Snowmobiling for that match.
And very. I mean, Stephen's 135 kilos now. He's as big and as strong as he's ever been. There was a delightful little video of him curling 70 kilos. So obviously a really strong young man. And Christian is the current champion, national champion for left hand.
Well, no, he was. This is what's interesting about it is that Christian's reasonably new to the sport, but he was ranked number 1 in Canberra, and he had recently gone over to the Sydney Spartans Club and had been very dominant on the left hand over there. So. Yeah, he was a little bit of an unknown quantity, but him and Stephen had a match previously. Stephen went through a bit of a trip through the
Stephen Carroll tour of the Eastern States.
That's right, exactly. And he had a super match with Christian maybe 6 months ago or something, and he said it was pretty close. He said Christian actually won that one, but it was close. And he goes, I really want a rematch. And he goes, if anyone drops out, I want that match. And he got that match. Unfortunately, it didn't work out in his favour.
No, because it looked like as much as Stephen's been gaining strength and size and working at his craft, Christian Bose has been. He was mega. There was no doubt about that. There was very dominant in that matchup, and so Stephen was walking away, scratching his head, wondering what to do next. Yeah. So obviously, the answer to that is 90-kilo dumbbells. So we'll see. We see. Well, I'm sure we'll see Stephen back bigger, stronger, and better than ever, and back on an AWE card sometime soon. But Christian Bose has certainly earned the right to call out his next opponent and see what comes next.
Yeah, it's one of those things that's difficult when you're a specialist in. I mean, arm wrestling is a niche sport to start with, but then when you're a specialist on the left arm, it can be difficult to find top level competition.
Well, Brett Coots was a great matchup because you really had that unknown quantity in Christian, and of course, very very much so. Brett is the OG of left hand arm wrestling in Australia, and so it would have been quite satisfying to see where the pecking order sat and where Christian kind of where it was that Christian fit in that whole narrative. But on this occasion, we didn't get to see that matchup, but we did get to see that Christian Bose is perhaps head and shoulders above the rest right now.
Yeah.
So
dominant.
So dominant. I don't know if Laz would have had anything for Christian Bose, so I think that maybe he dodged a bullet there.
Yeah, potentially, especially being injured. He was going to pull it. I think it was up to about 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks prior to. Laz has said, look, I've been dealing with this injury. I thought it was going to be healed in time, but it's not going to be. I'm not going to be able to give 100%.
Well, Laz is quite an outspoken athlete. You're not left in any doubt as to what he's thinking about anything, but I didn't hear Laz calling out Christian after that performance, so I think that's quite telling. So, but Laz did jump on the tables next, and he was up against Tom Demkowski, and Tom was quite highly favoured going into that bout, and Laz, the South African superstar, the berserker himself, brought his own brand of arm wrestling to AWE, and now the world knows what we now know about Laz. It's all noise, excitement. You're never quite sure what's going to happen, but he never fails to disappoint. He's one of the most entertaining arm wrestlers that you're ever likely to encounter.
Absolutely, yeah. This is why I was so excited to get Laz on the card, because his style is handmade for like mainstream consumption. This guy's an entertainment wildfire. I mean, you put him on the table and have a match. It's you can't look away. He's yelling, he's screaming, he's leaping up on the table. He's giving it absolutely everything. There's arguments with the referee. There's this, there's that. There's just fire and character all over him.
It's all fireworks.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's almost like Devin Larratt in a way. But to his style, and I think this is why Tom maybe Laz did end up winning this match 3-0, but Laz's style, unless you've sort of prepared yourself or encountered this before, it is ultra aggressive, and it's like it's not a slow, methodical, win this position, get this, and then roll. It's just explode into everything.
He really does risk it all every single time. And I think that can be quite intimidating. And this had been billed by Jake Ward as the rough against the smooth, and Tom being the smooth and Lass being the rough. And I think that was a pretty good analysis, because that's pretty much how it played out, where Tom was just trying to find that next position and trying to get comfortable and work his way through it, and Lass was giving him no opportunity to do that whatsoever, and yelling at him at the same time, screaming, So I mean, now the world knows about Laz, the berserker bolter. So he's no longer just a shadowy figures in the chat rooms, arm wrestling chat rooms of the world,
getting banned by Engen.
getting kicked out by Engen, and so he's now. Legitimately one of the AWE superstars, and it'll be very interesting to see what's next for Laz Bolter, and Tom Demkowski will walk away and think again about his approach and what he'll bring to the table next time, and look to test himself against the best once again.
Yeah, Laz's style is so strange in terms of, because he's building momentum almost, because he's hitting and he's hitting and hitting and hitting, but it's like he's swinging your arm.
Yeah.
And you're trying to resist it. But then when he builds momentum, you get sort of, you get lost into where you can find the resistance.
Will actually pull your arm back. So will pull you into a dominant position just to pull you back.
Yes.
And so you're not sure at what point you're resisting, because you just want to resist whatever pressure Laz is giving you. But he might be giving you the pressure that you want, but you can't take advantage of that, because you kind of thinking, what's going on here? I don't know.
And he's building momentum,
and
then all of a sudden he's going for the pin pad.
That's right. So there's not another arm wrestler in the world like Laz, the Berserker Bolter. That is 100% sure, and it's great to see his brand of arm wrestling get an audience as well.
Absolutely.
And so we also answered a question there about Josh Barker. Is Josh Barker a world-class under 70 kilo arm wrestler? And I think, we all walk away from his matchup with Taron Broad thinking, yes, even though he didn't walk away with the win on this occasion, Josh, and speaking with him afterwards, walked away with a lot of positive impressions of himself, and how and his areas of weakness that he felt that which was through his pronation and in his hand. He, having squared off against Taron a few times over the last 12 months, all of those areas that he felt weak in previously, he no longer did, and put up a considerable fight, and as well as the best part of 10 or so kilos. I mean, Taron's world class at 80 kilos, and so Josh to put up the struggle that he did was quite commendable, and a real positives walking away for Josh from that. But I guess the big question after seeing Taron's performance is, how would he now go against Sam Burnett?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think in that match that Josh was his own worst enemy. I think he could have won that match. I think he had the opportunities to do it. I think he actually confused himself throughout that match. And when I say that, I mean, off of the start, he was in two minds, and it was, am I going to slip or am I going to go for it in this one? So out of straps, he was sort of, you could see he was like, not sure, am I fully committing to the slip? Am I fully committing to a press? Am I fully committing to a top roll? And it was like, by the time it went go, he was half of what he needed to be in all three. It was sort of like, I'm here, but now I'm sort of trying to slip. And so he lost position rapidly in that. I think with a better game plan, he would have done quite well. And you could see it like after the first round, because he did get a pin in that as well. And I could see the sort of hesitation as he was setting up, and he's like, he's not sure what he's going to do.
Yeah.
He doesn't know whether he's going to slip or whether he's going to go for it. And if you're going into that round with that hesitation, it can really play against you, because, to slip, you need to be committed 100%. And to pin, you need to commit 100%. If you're halfway between both, that's where you're going to lose it, or you'll be in a compromised position straight away. So I think, with some better mindset going into each round, or more commitment, he probably... I think he could have been the favourite in that round.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Taron very much. I mean, Taron's built as you would imagine a strong man. He's like a scaled down strong man. He's built as you would like to specify an arm wrestling physique if you could. So he's got all of the natural assets there that of an arm wrestler. And at 80 kilos, I mean, you won't find anybody on the planet that looks bigger than Taron Broad at 80 kilos. He's just a formidable, physically a formidable opponent. And Josh, on the other hand, just does not look that way. Josh almost looks slender, except for as soon as his forearm gets pumped. And then he looks like an absolute freak from outer space. There's nothing quite like it. So, very interesting matchup. Answered some questions, and I think Josh walked away with that with enough in terms of positives to go back to the drawing board. He'll no doubt watch that video and understand some technical aspects of it that if he'd just realigned things just a little, he could have walked away with a better result than what he did. But I think otherwise he's quite happy with that result, and I think Taron's also feels comfortable with that, and also found some joy in the afterpool against some of the super heavyweights. Taron in a hook is stronger than his weight would suggest. So he'll walk. I think he walks away thinking, okay, I'm now ready for the next big matchup, and where that leads him, we'll soon find out. You alluded to this matchup a little earlier. So Marcus Satirai, a new superstar in the world of arm wrestling, up against Adam Laura, very very much a known quantity, a man that's been around the tables for a long time, genuinely loves the sport. He's certainly not in it for the money. He's a very successful man himself, and and he quite generous in coming over and spending the time with us that he did, and was looking to test himself against a far bigger opponent. So there was a discrepancy of close to 40 or so kilos between the two, and which is incredible when you see Adam Laura in person, and then you think, now add 40 odd kilos, and you got Marcus Satirai. It's just phenomenal, man. But both of these men were just absolute beasts, and to watch that video back, Adam was giving it his absolute all, and Marcus just seemingly absorbed all of that energy and converted that into some kind of horsepower for himself, and then just simply leant over and really stamped his authority on that matchup. And Adam really didn't have any answers in that matchup, and so walked away scratching his head, wondering what to do next. And I think, Adam will come back bigger and stronger and better next time, but Marcus is certainly now stepping onto the big stage and into the top echelon of the biggest of the big and the strongest of the strong, and it'll be very interesting to see where Marcus goes next.
Absolutely, yeah. Adam Laura, very experienced, wonderful guy, and fantastic to have him come over and be part of the first AWE event. And unfortunately didn't go his way. It was just, Marcus was just too strong. You could see on that very first pull, as soon as they went and go, Adam hit with everything he had, and Marcus just stood there.
Yeah.
His arm didn't move, and it was like, oh, okay. And then he hit through the hardest hit of the day with that first round. Marcus Satirai smashed Adam Laura's hand to the table like he was trying to push it through. Yeah, those guys pulled the bolts out of the floorboards that I bolted it in.
Yeah, that's just incredible. We'll have to go to a reinforced cage, I think, if they do come back to the AWE stage. So Hamza Hodgick and Jamie Barrett we spoke about earlier. That was a much hyped matchup to decide who is the number one junior in Australia. And Jamie Barrett came off a very successful tour of the United States and tested himself against some of the best that America's got to offer, and walked away with a reputation that might have intimidated a young athlete like Hamza, and yet Hamza took it all in his stride. And what was very telling for me, there was a bit of money either side. I don't know if it's legitimate that you can bet on junior athletes, but
Sure.
let's say it didn't happen, but
It's McDonald's vouchers.
it happened. So there was some money flying around within the arm wrestling fraternity, and with respect to this matchup, and there was a very decidedly one large, considerable camp on the side of Jamie Barrett, and I think we could put Ryan Bowen very firmly into that camp, Jake Ward very firmly in that camp, and let's just say their wallets are a little lighter now as a result of that. Hollywood and myself were very much, we had the benefit of training with Hamza and understood it. Well, we understood in terms of where he was at in terms of our level, which was he's very, very much head and shoulders above, but could also see how quickly he was progressing. And, almost from the time that we announced this matchup to the matchup, I think Hamza grew an inch in that period of time. Yeah. And I shook hands with Hamza maybe a month and a half ago, and again at the weigh-ins. And by the way, and Hamza had to weigh in earlier than all the other athletes, as he had his school formal that night.
Yeah, shows his age, doesn't it?
But that's why his hair was freshly cut as well, I'd imagine.
Right.
You noticed this.
He had a hat.
So first time I've seen him with his hair short, actually. And but when I shook his hand, I thought that's not the same hand that was attached to Hamza last time we shook hands. It felt...
Marked as zero as a hand, and you went, oh, sorry, I've grabbed the wrong person.
Can you take the basketball glove off, please? Baseball glove, I mean. But Hamza, stepped on stage and with the point to prove, and very much did that, and I think shook the arm wrestling world and realigned where people think perhaps Jamie is at in some respects, but also... Hamza is well and truly wherever Jamie might be, head and shoulders above, and walked away with the first belt of the evening, which was the AWE Junior Championship, and he is now the AWE Junior Champion and has that belt securely wrapped around his waist.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was an unknown match for me, and these sort of rivalries, or it was all in fun, but. I've never met Jamie, and I had never been on the tables with him, obviously. So I had really no information to go on as to whether or not he was way above Hamza or I just hoped it was going to be a really good match. But every time Ryan or Jake would sort of talk about it, they would be like, our boy versus your boy, and it was like, all right. It's
going to be like that, is it?
Yeah, sure. And then, we had some fun little bets, which made it a lot, it always spices things up when you put money on the line. But yeah, he was very
What did you spend the money on?
An Aussie arm wrestler T-shirt.
Oh, that's right. Very generous of you.
Yes.
Gunther's Bykovs and Mario Zambarkas. Now, there's a little bit of history here because we did have an event in Adelaide, and Mario was originally due to attend that event and wasn't able to make it. And Gunther's, I don't think he made much of the fact that he was likely to turn up on that day, but casually just walked through the door and looked around the room, and when Mario wasn't there, looked very disappointed.
Steam coming off of he was very upset. You could see he must have trained for that, and he was looking forward to it. Mario, unfortunately, unable to make it. We had the impression that he was going to be there up until a few days beforehand. And so, unfortunately, the message didn't get through to Gunther's in time, because I think we found out maybe 3 days prior that Mario wasn't coming along, and we were organising everything else, and just it didn't happen to get to Gunther's. So he's turned up expecting that Mario's going to be there, and unfortunately he wasn't. And because it's a tournament comprised mostly of local arm wrestlers from the South Australian arm wrestling community, it was not at the level of Gunther's Bykovs.
Certainly.
So he said, look, if Mario's not here, he goes, I'll just leave you guys to it. I'm not going to enter the tournament because...
I'm not going to take you $1,000. I'll go home now and think about what I do next.
Right.
And I think he just went home and trained even harder by the looks of things, because Gunther's turned up looking very good on the day. I mean, for keeping in mind, Gunter's is 50, Mario's 26. And what was interesting about this matchup, that Mario was actually the known quantity of the two athletes. It was the younger man in this case that we understood where his level was at. He also been over to America and over the last 12 months and spent time amongst the best of the arm wrestling community over there. And so we had some inkling as to where Mario sat. Whereas Gunter's, he's been in the shadows for 5 years, having retired essentially due to lack of competition, just lack of challenge. So he stepped away from the tables, and Gunter's has got two teenage lads who have over recent times taken to the gym and have been dragging Dad along with them, and Gunter's has been slowly working himself back into a competitive shape, and for a man that hadn't competed in best part of 5 years, he displayed no signs of ring rust and was quite dominant in that matchup. There was it was interesting that Mario may have been able to capture Gunter's hand on a couple of occasions. It seemed that he really had enough there, but just not the base low power of Gunter's, who admittedly was carrying an extra 20 or so kilos over and above Mario, and is maybe 2 or 3 inches taller as well, and all of those are factors that can be taken into account. But really what you did have was Gunter's previous Australian champion against Mario, who's been the man to beat for many years, and Gunter's reasserted himself as being the man. And now for Mario to be the man once again, he needs to beat the man. So, but there might need to be a rethink there, and some a little bit more training and a little bit more strength to build up to find himself at a level where he can be challenging Gunter's Bykovs for that heavyweight belt once more.
Yeah, that's right. And it felt like it was almost a mirror match. I wasn't sure exactly how this match was going to go because I hadn't seen Gunter's compete in person ever. Like, he had retired before I'd started the sport. And so he dropped past the SA Titans every now and then, you know, once every sort of 10 months he would sneak in and just destroy everybody. And because you think, okay, I'm doing all right, I'm getting better, you know, I'm rising through the ranks of the club, like maybe I'll have something. And you just,
I love it when you're giving your absolute or everything's going, oh yes, yes, oh, nice, okay,
good.
Okay, good. You know, oh, okay. Yeah, there's nothing. Yeah. There's nothing.
I see what you're trying to do.
It's not working.
It doesn't work.
It won't work here.
It won't work here. Yeah. And so to see him get on the table, I wasn't exactly sure.
We had one of our arm wrestlers' mothers, so strong like you. Back in Latvia. Yeah. She was good.
She was good.
She was good.
She's probably a bit stronger than you.
She was like the third worst woman in Latvia.
That was her first date.
Man, they do build them differently in Latvia, don't they? So
yeah. But that matchup, in terms of the technical
stylistically,
stylistically, I wasn't sure what game plan Gunter's was going to implement. He felt incredibly strong pronation wise every time he dropped past the club. It felt like he could pronate from any position, which is a top roll style. And it looked like in that match, both these guys were trying to top roll. Obviously, you're going to slip when you get that happening. They get strapped up. And it looked like Mario was winning the hand. But with Gunter's power and explosiveness off that start, he would win the middle. So even though he was losing his hand, he would get to the middle, and then he would immediately transition to a press.
Yeah.
And so without his hand, it wasn't completely flopped, but it was probably halfway there. And he was able to transition to a press and get the win.
Yeah.
And it was speed as well. Like he would win the middle and then immediately he's on a press. So if you're the opponent and you feel like, oh, I've got the hand here.
There's no chance to adjust.
Yeah. So I've got the hand, and I've been pressed.
Yeah.
So he did manage to sort of turn it on the inside, or Mario turned it on the inside more towards a hook in the third round. But again, Gunter's able to press on top of that. But
what's really exciting for me out of that matchup is that Mario is 26. You forget he's seemingly been around forever, and you just imagine, you know, there's I don't know a strength athlete that's at their prime at 26.
Yeah.
You know, so he's got muscle maturity to look forward to. He's got that tendon strength, that specific strength, all of that. Still to look forward to. So he's not even coming into his own yet, and yet he's been at the top of the table for so long. There's definitely an exciting future ahead for Mario Tambakis, and great and very healthy for him to be able to test himself against a new opponent, and to discover. I think in arm wrestling over recent times there's been a little bit of musical chairs about that, where the top guys, there's a handful, and they tend to arm wrestle each other a bit and become quite familiar with each other. But this was something new and something fresh and different for Mario, and maybe if Mario knew that he was going to be up against somebody who was mirroring his style, again he would approach that differently, and who knows what might happen in that scenario where he's better prepared for that next time. So I'm sure Mario will walk away and take notes and understand that there's a pathway to victory somewhere there. And
he said after the match, I think if it went to 4 or if it was first to 5, he goes, I think I would have had him, because he felt that his Gunther's hand was gassed to the point where he could have taken control if the match had continued, but obviously it was first to 3, so that's all she wrote. But it was interesting to find that he felt if the match had gone, if it was 6 rounds, or if it was first to 4 or first to 5, that he probably would have made a comeback there.
Very interesting. And I guess with this is a question that's come up in the world of arm wrestling over the last week or so, in terms of, and we saw it in our own main event between Ryan and Macho Oringo. So we've got the larger athlete gassing, and not capable of completing the 6 rounds.
Yeah.
And is that a win or is that a loss?
Should be a loss.
And in Hollywood Matt Connolly's opinion, perhaps it is a loss. And there's perhaps some iteration and refinement to that in the world of AWE. That if opponents are going to agree to 6 rounds, then that's a 6-round match. It's not something that you can walk away from just because you've got your nose in front and the numbers seem stacked in your favour. So, and I think that opens the door perhaps for those people that aren't necessarily mass monsters, and the smaller athlete that's able to oxygenate their system and recover more quickly and put themselves into winning positions over a longer run. So, stay tuned to some innovations in that space when you next watch the AWE.
We're doing first to 4.
First to 4.
First to 4 is how our matches will be
in the future. You've heard it here first.
I've never been a fan of the 6 round, regardless, for exactly that reason. Somebody gets 4-0 up, and then they either quit or they just lay down for the last 2, or they just goof around for the last 2. And it's like, what's the point of that? It should be, and having first to 4, if you're up 3-0, good on you. You've still got to get another win to finish this. You've got to actually decisively end the match. You can't choose to end, and that's what you saw with Levan and Hermes on the weekend as well. He was up 4-0 and couldn't continue. And it's like, okay, well, now it's 4-2. Yeah, surely you still won the match. Yeah. But, the fans are there. It's supposed to be 6 rounds and you're only doing 4. Well, let's do first to 4. So we force you to continue, and you must get to 4. You can't be goofing off. If you want to mess around in that last round, you might have opened the door for a comeback from your opponent.
Well, it'd be very interesting if, say, Mario Tambakis in this case, it says, well, look, I want a rematch, but I want it under the agreement that we're going to carry it through to first to 4 or first to 5 or whatever it might be, and let's see who wins under those conditions. It makes you wonder what might have happened with Ryan Bluebowen and March Baringi's matchup. If it had stretched out another 1 or 2, would Ryan have had enough? Although I think both men were pretty spent at that stage, but nonetheless, was that that door being ajar that Ryan needed to be able to sneak through and stick his boot in there and make an opening. I guess we'll never know now. But
this is one of those things is for what you said a second ago. If somebody, in terms of the endurance side, is a factor in a match. If you're having a super match and somebody else is just incredibly explosive, well, maybe their explosiveness starts to wear out after 3 rounds. And then it's like, well, what have you got now? Because you've got 3 pins, but now you're gassed. Like, what else do you have? And I think it creates a more well-rounded athlete. Because if you get the first 3 wins, great. You've still got to get another win.
It also provides an opportunity for the giant killers.
Yeah.
You know? So very interesting. And of course, Blue Bowen versus the Beast, Head Morris. That was an exciting matchup.
Yeah.
Whenever you've got somebody who's 165 kilos in the cage, I mean, it's across the table. It's always a sight and a spectacle. And we knew how strong Martaringi was before he stepped into the cage, and we knew what a formidable opponent he was going to be. And of course, it was all on quite late notice, and Ryan had been preparing for a very, very different opponent. Although originally it was Chance Shaw and Ryan's early preparation for that matchup he felt was going to keep him in good stead when facing off against the Beast. So what was your read there?
Yeah, surprised actually. I thought Ryan would have been the favourite in that matchup. Fantastic that Martaringi stepped in last minute, and I think it was 2 days' notice when we had Michael Todd, unfortunately, with his snowmobile accident. His ATV accident. Yeah, that's so. Yeah, fantastic that he came over, that we were able to put on a main event and a quality main event. And the comments from people when we announced that matchup as the replacement once Todd Hutchings had been injured was that they were looking forward to that more, because it was almost seen as a bit of a squash match having Todd Hutchings and Ryan Bowen. So they were like, oh, he's just going to flatten him. You know, if Ryan can do anything, that'll be the only talking point. Whereas with this one, it was going to be competitive. It was like, actually, Ryan should be the favourite here, but Heather Morris is a massively strong guy.
Yeah.
And unbeaten in 10 years in New Zealand, and current bench press champion, 165 kilos, came second to Lachlan Adair in the over-the-top tournament earlier. It was last year. Huge man. And then getting in for a 6-round match on 2 days' notice against Ryan Bowen. And it was a great match as well. Very interesting. A lot of back and forth. There was no flash pins or anything like that. There was no dominant, just overpowered victory.
It seemed to be real fight over the centre on a couple of occasions there, where it could have gone either way there for a moment or two, and just seemed that Heather Morris just was able to apply that a little bit more pressure, get things more on his side, and from there, for as long as he had hand control, he was able to keep moving forward. And on maybe the 1 or 2 occasions where he didn't, he was able to press through that and see himself to the pin.
Yeah, it was interesting. You almost saw every single possible technique come out from both guys there.
Yeah.
Ryan pulling out a King's move, and even on the second round. But it looked like, and this is one of the things with Ryan, is that he's known for his hand and his wrist strength. And it didn't look at any point in the match that he willingly gave that up or that he lost that. And especially in that first round, he still had the cup in his position. It was just Heather Morris was just so strong, so heavy, he was able to sort of still pin, even though Ryan still had a cup position.
Yeah.
Ryan sort of played around with a couple of different ideas, trying to press.
Well, he was almost successful there in the strap, and he can only blame himself for that because it was a pound for pound strap. So the strap got very loose, and it seemed maybe that was to his advantage at one point, and then it just got too loose, and he just didn't have the leverage, and then it favoured the Beast from there.
Yeah, absolutely. The Beast just too powerful. Ryan did what he could. What can you do? You've given everything. He's got nothing to hang his head about. You've tried all these different techniques, and you were in certain positions, certain moments. The Beast just too strong on the day.
Well, it's incredible to think that maybe even just a matter of 3 or so months earlier, Ryan was literally half the weight of his opponent.
Yes.
So we saw Ryan Bowen in his biggest, strongest ever shape, and as a newly minted heavyweight, and up against one of the strongest men this side of the planet.
What an opponent to pick.
Of all the people. But, I think that speaks to Ryan's courage as an athlete. Ryan certainly had more to lose in this situation than anybody else. Ryan could have licked his wounds and said, "Oh, Todd Hutchings isn't here; he's injured. I'm sure he'll be back in a few months' time. Let's just postpone it. We'll do it all again. We'll run this back. This will be fine." And we still would have had a spectacular card. It would have been a lovely event. We would have caught up. It would have been great fun. It would have been nice and fresh for after pull, and the public would have had a great time. But it speaks volumes of Ryan's courage and determination, not just to put on a great show, but to test himself regardless of what might be coming your way. And he'd naturally prepared for, and a lot of people aren't aware that it was a third opponent along the way that dropped out. So we had 3 main events cancel, and Ryan had primed himself for all 3. During the course of the preparation, and in what was a pretty short period of time to be preparing for one opponent, let alone 3, and in the end 4 different opponents, and all vastly different weight categories, all vastly different styles, but interestingly, his final opponent was probably the one that was most known to him, that he was most familiar with. But then what we saw was a new version of Madaringa.
Yeah.
He was, and many people were commenting how much more technically proficient the beast was. Obviously known for his base load strength. There was there's no denying that when you see somebody in that type of physical condition, and he's obviously a very powerful individual and would be able to overwhelm most people. But there was the technical proficiencies that had surprised many, and as you said, there was every type of technique that was applied during that matchup, and both athletes had to really go to the end of their skill spectrum in order to stay in the match.
Yeah.
And so I think we saw the best of both athletes in that situation. We saw Ryan being courageous and testing himself and having to basically pull every tool out of the box to try and stay in the matchup against somebody who was twice as the weight just a matter of months ago. And then you had essentially in the beast somebody coming here to prove a point that is not all just strength and power. That's a big part of it, but hey, there's some technique here that the world needs to listen to, and that's the difference between him being a regional strongman generalist to maybe being a world-class arm wrestler.
Yeah.
So, we saw enough in Ryan there to feel that as a heavyweight, he's still got a lot to offer. And with Madaringi, we saw that here we go. We've got somebody who's going to be stepping on the world stage again, and has a lot to prove against the top echelon of athletes.
Yeah, I think Ryan has been targeting that 105 sort of kilo world ranking, which is where you've got guys like Irakli, you've got John Brzezinski, you've got Ongabayeb, you've got guys.
Hollywood Matt Connolly.
Yeah. Yeah. The Deadly.
That
That's the final boss
just,
there.
just waiting, just itching to get off the commentary desk.
That's right. It's just, you
Waiting for
need
the call
somebody?
up.
Do you need somebody?
Yeah.
Are you hurt? Can you continue? I'm ready. Oh, you can continue. Okay, never mind.
Take me in.
Are you sure? Yeah. But yeah, fantastic event. I'm so glad to put this on together, and yourself and Ryan to put all these things in place and create the AWE. And yeah, it was a whirlwind of fun of creating content and getting shirts done and organizing this and production and videos and photos and athletes and flying people and meeting people at the airport, and yeah, it was great. One funny thing was I had to pick Ryan up from the airport, and we're in Adelaide Airport. It's like a long drive of you've got to be crawling along at 2 kilometers an hour, and if you see your person, you can pull over and pick them up, and then you got to get out of there. It's like a no standing thing. There's like 20 guys standing there, like ready to tell you off if you stay there for more than 3 seconds. And I'm looking, and it's like, okay, there's a family, there's like an old lady, there's like, and then this like dude just standing there, like it was like, it's like, oh, there he is. That was him. There's Ryan Bowen.
He's the world's strongest ginger.
Stood out from the crowd, looking massive. He was 107 kilos. Pure fury. He was ready to go. He was in shape, and he brought everything he had, but unfortunately, on the day, it wasn't enough against 165 kilo, enormously strong Manawaringi Head Morris.
Indeed, and so it raises questions. What's next for Ryan Bowen? What's next for many of these men that faced off on the card, and AWE 2 and 3 might start answering some of those questions.
That's right. Looking forward to it.
Should be great. Well, thank you very much, Hollywood Matt Connolly, for sharing the mic, not just today, but on the day of the big event. And to everybody that's tuned in and checked out the excuse me, so the live stream, and who bought the pay-per-view and who put their own money down to be part of the event. We really do thank you. Without you, there would not be an event. To the athletes, of course, that took a punt on something new and turned up and came all the way to Adelaide in order to compete. Absolutely amazing, and we thoroughly enjoyed hosting you, and we certainly look forward to doing this all again on the Gold Coast very, very soon. We've and of course to all of the arm wrestling influencers and all the people within the arm wrestling community that have highlighted the event, made a video about it, reviewed it, spoken about it. Jake Ward in particular for covering the event, and Uncle John who took the time out of their very, very busy schedules, especially with King of the Table being on, I'm just blown away that Jake took the time in order to cover the event in the way that him and Uncle John do in their customary signature style, and so that was absolutely amazing. And we're deeply indebted to all of the guys out there in the arm wrestling community that took time out of their day to shine a light on the AWE, and we'll have that. So a few questions that came up. No, I'm not Kratos, so that's
he is. He's just like, he's 3,000 years old.
But no, I am who Kratos is based on. The AWE store will be up very, very soon. So for those people that like the shirts and have their favourite athletes, they will soon be able to jump into the store and grab themselves their shirt.
One of the cool things about that is the athletes are getting 50% of each sale of the profit. Is that correct?
Yeah, correct. So the athletes benefit. So if you've got a favourite athlete, you want to get behind them, then you can certainly buy their shirt and store and wear that proudly and know that it's going to a great place and helping these guys turn pro. And that's really what we're all about here at the AWE. So there'll be hats and there'll be hoodies and all of that type of normal merch that you're used to coming across. But you'll find all of that in the AWE store very, very soon. And big announcement, of course, on the day was that Monster Michael Todd was going to be appearing at AWE 2, and almost immediately after that announcement is bicep snap.
It's like 12 hours later or something.
Just crazy. So the curse of Ryan Bowen continues to cast its shadow over the arm wrestling world. So we wish Monster Michael Todd a very speedy recovery as well. We seem to say that a lot of our feature athletes at the moment.
Was it a snowmobile accident?
There were snowmobiles involved.
Right.
So so it was in a tournament.
I saw the footage as I was driving in.
Ah, right. Yeah. So what did that look like to you?
It didn't look.
Seen it. I've only heard speculation.
Right. It didn't look too bad. If you watch it, I think there's like a 40-second clip, and I reckon it was him that put it up. He's gone for a pin and they've slipped apart, and it just like sort of rubs his arm, and he's like, "Oh, that didn't feel right." Yeah, and then he's like, I don't think I'll continue. And obviously that was the tear. But yeah, unfortunately for Monster Michael Todd, we won't see him at AWE 2, but we may see him in the future.
Naturally, hope he gets well soon. I understand he is waiting on his recovery plan to be rolled out, and waiting to find out the dates for surgery. And once he's got those dates locked in, well, he'll know more about how long it's going to take for him to be able to get back on the competitive table. And, the world's not the same without Michael Todd driving around winning arm wrestling competitions all around North America.
That's right.
So we hope to see him back out there doing it soon, and of course on an AWE table sometime in the not too distant future. Of course that's not going to stop the Monster Factory event, so that's still going ahead. So it's not going to stop his ability to wear one of these and talk into one of these. So certainly stay tuned to the Monster Factory events and check out all of that kind of stuff that's going on Michael's channel, and support him whilst he's injured, and make sure that he's got every reason to come back to the competitive table very, very soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Monster Michael Todd, Rebecca Todd, wonderful people, and I was gutted when I found out he wasn't going to be able to. We'll work with him in the future, and obviously when he's 100% again. And he was pulling left arm something or other yesterday. Figured out a king's move on his left, so maybe left arm is an option.
maybe it is. So Christian Bowes will need somebody to compete against, won't he?
Right.
To everybody who's been involved and tuned into the podcast and supported us over the last couple of years that we've been talking into microphones and been along on this journey with us and stayed for the event. Thank you very much. We're very much indebted to you, and we look forward to bringing you more of this and more big events very, very soon. So thank you very much, guys, and stay tuned for more.
Thanks a lot.